Okay, I welcome you to another episode of Learning Stories. This is an audio and video show where we interview a diverse set of learners from the 21st century. On each episode of this show, we interview a guest who has a story to share about how they acquired a set of skills and knowledge in a creative and innovative way. In the process, we hope to uncover a new understanding of learning as conceptualized, imagined, and narrated by the guest on our show. And one of the larger reasons we do this podcast is because we hope in a small way to create a kinder and more empathetic version of the internet, where we hold space for each other and where we realize the time, love, learning, and sacrifice that it takes to build a career in any field. So today's guest, Ranjana Anjan Srivastava, is someone whose work has always inspired me, and we were classmates back in college for a short period of time. So, a little bit about Ranjana before we jump into this conversation. So, Ranjana is a theatre and design professional. She has 14 years of theatre experience, 9 years as the lead in landmark theatre plays, and over 7 years in the design industry. So, at a young age, she's gathered several years of experience in both these spaces. As a graphic designer and visual consultant, she has worked with brands like Asian Paints, Castrol, Lakme Fashion Week, Papa John's, Pedigree, and Whiskas. She was immersed in the world of theatre as a young child and has acted in 200 plus live performances of plays like Shatranj Ke Mohre, Drishti Dan, Bilkis Begum Ka Bada, Ek Aur Dronacharya, and I will be including links of some of these performances, links to the IPTA Theatre Group, which Ranjana will tell us a little more about, and they do have some wonderful shows at theatre spaces here in Mumbai, which I highly, highly recommend as a follow up to this conversation. She has also shown her versatility as an actor through music videos and print work. And today, Ranjana is here to share her story and what she's learned along the way in her career as a theatre and design professional. So, Ranjana, the first question that I wanted to ask you was, you've gathered so many years of experience at such a young age, and I think one thing I've admired about you is how flexible you were with regards to acquiring skills in different spaces. Like in your professional experience, you were a film editor, you were a designer, you were a visual consultant, you were an actor, a screenwriter. So you've explored multiple options. And what I wanted to know was, what was Ranjana like as a young girl in school? Tell me some stories from your childhood. Like, what were you like at school?
I was an introvert.
Hmm.
Uh, I was very bad at my academics. I was extremely shy to take up non academics or extracurricular. I was an extremely passive student. I don't know where to, like, the complete 360 contrast of what I think I am today, because it was extremely difficult for me to make friends. Uh, Extremely difficult to go up to my professor, teacher, or HOD to, voice my concerns. And yeah, I was always the one with grace marks. That was cool.
Hmm. But what subjects did you find interesting in school? Like, was there like languages or math or physics? Which one was interesting for you?
I think the only subject I could possibly do with my complete interest was history. That's it. That's about it. Maths was difficult, languages were difficult. I just could not take. I was an SSC board student, so no other subjects were in question, like physics and chemistry. So uh, I think in the seventh standard, I also had to repeat a year. That is how poor I was in academics. But that failed year actually helped me go completely on another level, because I had the confidence of repeating my subjects. After the seventh grade, I turned into a foyer anchor immediately. So first to seventh, grace mark student, seventh to tenth foyer anchor.
Wow.
That's how
Because
it turned. Like it turned very sharply for me, and I could not believe that it just happened. But a little confidence actually pushed me to scoring much better than uh, what actual knowledge or methods could not do, or tuition could not do.
Yeah, and like with history, Ranjana, what did you like about history? Like why history in particular was something you enjoy?
I think history was also a form of storytelling for me. Mathematics was very objective. Languages needed grammar. Languages to me is also a form of maths, honestly, because it is a lot to do with rules and formulas that make up a language. So all of that, I don't think my left brain hemisphere could process easily. But history and art, both in fact, were subjects where all chapters were going to a story about the Mughal Empire, a story about the Chola King, a story about the Harappan civilization. So everything was a story format. And then a lot of my history learning was through imagination. I think that's where playwriting comes into play. Like, okay, this happened and that happened, and imagine the decor of Harappan civilization. Imagine the houses. Imagine their library. How would they dress up? All of that, which was never asked in the exam, but I had a backstory. I had a backstory of their aesthetics, their culture, um, whatever language they spoke, which I would never be very good at, but they spoke and they lived. Were they happy? Were they not? And then whatever SSC wanted me to answer in the paper, I also learned that. But that made the whole method very easy for me because it was very interesting. In fact, even today, when I travel, my first priority to select a place is what history does that place have. And can I probably breathe in the essence of that place when I'm going there? Apart from safety, that is one of my most important criteria. If I'm going to Cochin, what exactly, how was Cochin built? How was it made? How did it progress? What all went into making this city, that city it is? It's still one of my favorite subjects. So if I have to read a book about Vincent van Gogh, it's much more interesting than a self-help book for me because I don't know, I don't have reasons, but these are stories, right? So that's probably why now that I speak to you, I have that clarity on why I like the subject. Otherwise, I just knew that I liked history.
Yeah, because I think history is such a an important part of our identity, right? We all have histories because of what our parents and ancestors may have gone through. I think you made a very good point about how history can be told in the form of a story, but then it's also important to understand whose story is being heard,
Yeah.
right? For instance, if you look at India as a country, we can look at India's history from the perspective of the British Empire, or we can look at the history of India from the perspective of the people that fought in our independence movement, and they'll both tell two very different, sort of stories. And also, if you look at the history from, a particular state or maybe a princely state, I think that experience would be so much different, from that. But I'm curious about your upbringing in the sense that your father is this veteran theater actor, and um, I mean, someone I grew up watching before
What?
I met you. I've seen him in so many films, and I loved how he always had this strong presence on the screen, So I was really excited when I found out that, you were so closely connected to him. But growing up in that sort of household, did you feel like you had a curiosity about the world of acting and movies or theater in that sense?
Surprisingly, not at all. Until unless I studied in St. Xavier's for my 11th and 12th, and we call it junior college in Mumbai. And until then, I really did not, because as I said, in school I was just struggling to pass through standards, grades. Once I did, uh, the next 3 years, seventh, eighth, and ninth, were just years of glory because I was just basking in the fact that, okay, I am getting good at something. So it takes a while for a child to figure out what is it that they will finally pursue. And acting was not one of my ideas, in fact. I have explored, like, so beautifully you mentioned my bio. Thank you so much for that. That I was very flexible to everything. That's also because I'm always exploring all the other things I could be good at. And this has been always a very critical matter for me, because I think with your work, you're going to live all your life. And you might have a lot of factors to consider when you're choosing a work. Will it be reasonable 20 years down the line? Will I actually get that ikigai factor? Whether will I earn enough that I can support my family in future? That can I support myself? Can my work be a factor which is extremely important? So work is very critical, and above all, will I be happy doing this? Because work would like give me a lot of anxiety about choosing my career. I think it has been one of my most important decisions. Later on, I realized there needs to be nothing fixed, because you can do all the things at once. And there is no hard and fast rule set in the universe about you having to do one thing and being excellent at that, or doing a lot of things and being, a company in your own account. So, acting happened somewhere in St. Xavier's when there was a street play audition going on, and my English was not very good at that point of time. But I wanted to test myself out, and I went ahead and gave auditions for both of them. And it came to me a lot more comparatively naturally than any other art form. Um, because I had often, probably a lot of acting is observation, and I used to attend rehearsals when I was little. I've always attended rehearsals. I've always loved the environment around theater, but it was never actively a thought for me. I was like, yeah, it's home. Like, this is home, and so is IPTA, and so is any form of theater. So when I went there and I auditioned, and it just felt like a door opening for me, like in within me, not in the sense of a career alternative, or a door of fame, or a door of wealth. It was just an outlet of expression, uh, where I felt, okay, whatever it is that I might have bottled up, I can probably flow it through my dialogues on stage. It's like a huge library of your suppressed emotions, of your thoughts, of things you might have not spoken, things you might have spoken, but not, uh, you might want to speak more. And when you act, it's just about picking the right book and then flowing it through that dialogue. I mean, I follow that acting method, or I don't know whether to call it. I have no school or formal education, so I don't know if there is any method. But yeah, um when I'm expected to perform something, I'm just going to pick up inferences from my observations and my own life experiences. And that's what's going to make my art. And there might be 1,000 people better than me and 1,000 people yet to be where I am. But what I will do is what I will do, and I can only get better or worse at it. But that's probably why, and something that my father always told me, there is no way that you can compare yourself to another actor or an artist, because the whole point of art is that what you do is what you do. So there can be no bad actor, if you ask me. There can only be incorrect grammar. For example, you're on stage and you're not audible. That's a problem. But whatever you're doing out of your own experience. So there's nothing wrong about your acting. You're just not audible. That you need to work on. So I think that is the best piece of advice I ever got, and I'm sharing it away. And never share it away, but I will. I think that solved my confidence issues. That solved my, and it made acting a free thing to practice rather than something to worry about. Even today, when I have my peers always questioning whether am I doing this right, whether I'm doing this wrong, all of that is great. It's a part of the process where you're improving yourself, but getting so critical that you suck the joy out of it is not cool. I think that's where we should stop.
Yeah.
Just go and enjoy the space that you got. Getting a platform in a highly populated country in itself is a big privilege, even if you worked for it. So I think
Yeah.
that's how, I don't know, I started off with something and I totally digressed to that other.
No, this is This is perfect, Ranjana. This is exactly what we're thinking about with this, conversation. Like for you as someone that has been immersed in this world of theater, Ranjana, what do you think is the role of theater, in society or as an art form? Like, what is your impression of the purpose of theater as an art form right now?
It's actually a very good question because I'm looking for the answer myself. I don't know if I'll be successful. I want to move towards direction or production, like producing plays or directing plays. And whenever I do something new, my most important question is why? Because I think if you know the answer to that question, mostly you will sail through it without any, or if there are difficulties or challenges arising on that path, your why keeps you grounded. So I do not really know, times have changed, but I do know when IPTA started theater, or IPTA began as a movement, it did not just directly uh, jump into theater. IPTA had a very solid, or IPTA has a very solid why. It started as a progressive writers association where writers and artists together, people of the same thought, writers and artists alike, wanted to reach out to the masses with the agenda of educating people who are illiterate, because India had a very much lower literacy rate compared to today. And what is literacy? The inability to read and write. So obviously, with the purpose of the message of the independence movement, how am I going to reach to the commoners? Definitely not through newspaper articles, right? Because the literacy rate is low. But radio is a medium, and so is theater. I'm not going to stand here and, uh, for me at least, standing here and just going on a lecturing spree about why we need so and so revolution and why this should not happen and why that should not happen is not going to impact your head as much as showing you a real life situation and using the medium of audio visual, which is something again my father emphasizes on, that natak is audio and visual combined, which is or even for that matter films are, and that's a very basic but important uh, uh, feature of this medium. So standing there and showing you a play about the same oppression but someone else going through makes you empathize if you are in that position. So you might take it or leave it, but that's a much more powerful way to get your message across. Back then, that was the idea. But every institution needs its own revolution at all times. And theater in itself has gone through a revolution. I still think that empathy is one of the greatest factor in any art, especially on stage, especially in films. If you are able to help audiences connect to you, because what is a better way? If I'm showing you a whole story, right? History connected to a weak student like me. So I'm assuming that for somebody who's just worked 9 to 5 in their offices and probably just want to relax now and want to see something which is not generated by AI. I'm talking about today, which is not generated by a computer. I want to see real people and real emotions and a live performance. That's when I come here. Now, what I show to them as an artist is completely where I have liberty and at the same time responsibility. Am I going to show them a lecture about something that is not relevant to them anymore, or am I going to try to like catch their string and attach it to mine and then pull them in and um well have them realize that they did not even know when they are a part of the story? That's my power here, because your phones are off and the spotlight is on me. So medium more or less is the same, motive more or less is the same, but the subjects that we are now picking up is different. Colonization was there back then also, and it will always be. We're always going to be fighting. We're always going to be in revolution. Uh, Back then, it was the British era. Back then, it was oppression. There are oppressions in different forms even today. There, there can be oppression in careers. There can be oppression in very modern issues. There can be oppression in relationships. But if we stop calling it out, how do we progress? So I think revolution, theater is a form of that revolt, at least to me. And it can be many things to many people. You show something to someone with a sense of great responsibility. Uh, or you just have them come to you and entertain them. That's also a motive, and it is unfair to call it a waste of time just because you have a message and another guy does not, and he's just entertaining someone. Not really. It's a form of art. Like I said, there's no right or wrong. There are so many different groups today, by the way. I feel this is a very golden period for stage, especially with the advent of AI. If people are looking for real connection, this is the time. Every group is saying something else. Every group is coming to you with a different message. Not everyone is here to tell you about oppression and revolution. IPTA stands with that thought. It always stands with theater with a message. So they have stuck to their ideology, which is a great thing. There are other groups exploring musical as a form, exploring modern issues as a form, exploring interpersonal relationships as a form. Whatever reaches out to you, for whatever you have your solid why, I think that's the subject you should pick up and reach out to people, because whatever uh, uh, actually has your heart and soul attached, only that is going to reach out to your audience. Anything else made for money, fame, um, any other intent which is not as solid, or if your why is not solid, is not going to reach the audience. That's probably why people do theater for no money.
No,
That's the
but that's it's so beautifully put, Ranjana, because I agree with you completely. I think theater is one of those art forms, one of those rare art forms where you actually get to see a live person performing in front of you and experiencing an emotion. No other, like whether it's books or films or TV shows, sometimes you read so many books, watch so many films, and you feel like, why do you feel so overwhelmed? Like for me personally, I'm constantly reading and watching because I feel like there's a detachment with the characters because I don't see them in person. I think with theater I've never felt that because I'm in there. And one thing I've always been in awe of with theater actors is, how do you remember such long dialogues? I am so amazed. That's why I think I can never do theater, because I think theater actors have the best memory. And I know each theater actor has their own process, their own way of doing it. And I know one thing I think is also really admirable about theater actors is how much time you put into rehearsal. I know for every performance, there is weeks and weeks of rehearsal, costumes, lighting, sound. So, like, because you've grown up around and worked with so many prolific artists in the theater community, Ranjana, we'll come back to your time in college. But if you can, I know in your bio you told me you worked with stalwarts like Rakesh Bedi ji, your dad, Anjan Srivastav, Sulabha Arya. There are so many names, and even some wonderful directors that you've mentioned. If you can tell me one thing you've learned about the arts or storytelling from each of these people, like one small lesson that you've picked up off the top of your head that you want to absorb as an artist yourself, what do you think comes to your mind now? You can start off with your dad, and then we can go and
I gave away the most important piece of
true.
advice, which was uh, I was very nervous before. So in IPTA, if there's a new play, the process is that the whole committee watches the first run, and there is an approval or rejection process. It should stick to the ideology. It should do justice. There should be no vulgarity, whatever the guidelines. So I think for one of my plays, The House of Banara Alba, uh, which is Bilkis Begum ka Bada in Hindustani. So House of Banana Alba, I bagged, thanks to my director, I bagged one of the most important roles of Adela. Adela is the girl who basically serves almost as, you know, the antagonist. but all through the play she's the protagonist. So it's a very complicated graph. Like initially she's revolting, but then she's not, and then she's again revolting. So it was very hard for me to even understand what am I doing through the play. And I was very stressful because there was everything from crying to laughing to making people laugh to crying myself to making people cry. I was like, I don't know. Every play took up so much of my energy that before the first run itself, I was completely dejected. I didn't even know if I'll be able to do or I have it in me any further. And like I told you in the beginning of our talk, that confidence is 80% sometimes and skills is just 20%. And I lost my confidence. And I keep losing my confidence in regular intervals when it comes to myself as an actor. One bad feedback and your confidence is gone. That's how sensitive actors can be. And that's when my dad sent me a message that, all the very best. And he sent me a text message and that said, all the very best. And remember, what you can do, no other actor can do, and vice versa. That's it. That's all. That was the message. Vice versa was so important because it kept me grounded to the fact that no one else is to be looked down upon, but you are not supposed to look down on yourself either. So always remember you're acting something like that, like what you deliver is what you deliver because of your own experience. And now I stick that lesson to my heart if I have completely gone zero in the bar of confidence. I just remember that one message. I have that visual of that message. Even though it was a text message, I have that visual. That is the most important lesson. Until date, no other critique matters to me except that of him, not because he's my father, because I have seen his process. It's extremely grounded. It comes from a place of no lobby, no, forgive me if I say that, no backing of any institution, completely self-made. So I know what he's saying, and I think as artists we all need to stick to one, our gut feeling, and two, that one person we are convinced will give us the best feedbacks. So that's number one, and I think that's the best piece of advice I can give to any actor lacking confidence. Secondly, when it comes to storytelling, I might not be the right person because I'm not that much of a storyteller as much of a technician or a designer that I am. So MS Satyu, who I had the privilege of working with, who's a Sangeet Natak Academy recipient, which is one of the highest awards in the world of theatre. He directed a lot of plays in IPTA. And when I was working under him, one of the lessons that he gave to me from the set's point of view, the set of the play, was that if your set is heavy and if it has, there might be grandeur in your set, you might have a chandelier hanging, you might have a sofa, you might have all of that is good. Do what you want. But if at the end of it, everything cannot fit into a suitcase, okay, uh, how are you going to travel with your theater? And the whole point of theater is to travel, mobility. I saw the same thing in Nasiruddin Shah's play Father. In fact, a lot of his plays use very minimal amount of set. Anything that is available in any stage or theater as a part of their provisions, platforms, or maybe just one cube. Father just literally uses one table and tapes to define how the house is divided in various rooms. Uh, I think that is the beauty of stage. And he taught me how to be true to, or I took from him how to be true to that factor, mobility or minimalism. It's a very important thing. Again, my opinion, there are Gujarati and Marathi formats where stage shows, stage sets are very elaborate, and it's true to their storyline. There's nothing wrong about it, but I really believe in this format. Anything which is flexible and adaptable and mobile, that's how stage should be. And at the same time, it also enables audiences to think, not just spoon feed them. Imagine that this is where the next room is. Use your brain a bit. uh, it also pulls them into the format of storytelling because they are constantly processing. Okay, now what happened? Did he move into that room? Did he not move into that room? The lighting changed in the last before interval. Every time the light changed, it indicated a change in the uh, you know space. So maybe this time it has happened again. So I that was one lesson I took technically from Mr. MS Satyam. And when it came to acting, that's the lesson I took from my dad, that uh, you can't be wrong. That lesson is very freeing, and this lesson is very educating and enlightening. So I think that's all I could probably share. When it comes to storytelling, I'm a student and I'm still learning how to, uh, you know, aesthetically design your words in a way that reaches you really well. So I'm not the right person yet. But definitely at some point, if I become a storyteller, a good storyteller, I will come to you with one lesson. But I am looking, I think every time I read a book, I'm looking for that one statement which can help me go through. Like I said, I'm always looking for the why. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, that's because I do believe that in the coming years, Ranjana, you will, probably just like Dad, have your own play that's running for 15 to 20 years, and I see that in you, that love for telling stories, and I think it comes from a very honest and vulnerable place where you genuinely want to communicate a true human emotion to the audience member, and I think that's the staying power of powerful plays and actors, because there are so many actors in the world, but some just stay with you because of what they are able to do on stage or on screen, and um, but I just wanted to backtrack a little about your years in college, Ranjana. You went to Xavier's and KC College, which are two premier institutions in the city of Mumbai. In your like 5 year time in those two institutions, what are your memories of some things you learned that are helpful for you now? And what did you study when you were at university as well?
I'm a BMM graduate and I took up advertising majors in BMM. Uh, I highly credit both these institutions for everything I am today. Um, St. Xavier's for giving me my knack for stage. I think if it weren't for St. Xavier's, I would have never even explored stage. Uh, KC for design, because like I had mentioned, I think when we were casually speaking about it, design just happened accidentally to me. So when we were organizing a festival in KC College in the second year of my graduation, bachelor's, BMM, I happened to like, BMM is a very very experience based course, and everything has a practical application. They take us through 36 subjects in a span of 3 years, and there is a practical project at the end of every semester for each of these subjects. Design actually came to me through one of our festivals where our designer, for some unforeseen reasons, could not make it in time to at the festival, and I was forced to make like a, what do you call that thing, a brochure for the festival. Yeah, the BMM Blitzkrieg brochure. And I realized I, again, like a door opening, like I could express myself in art. And after I found theater, I immediately found design, where my knack for aesthetics, my um, harmony, and all these design principles just flew without me knowing these terms. I didn't know what's a color theory, what's split complementary, what's triad, what's analogous. Uh, I just started applying color theories, and with each theory, I started understanding what works, what does not work, what is alignment, what does it mean to balance negative space with a text space or a visual space. And I don't know, I can never explain. I think design is a very underrated and uncomplimented form of the art I practice. It was like meditation for me. And when I completed and I saw my product, I was very happy. And I started designing on a regular basis for small agencies, and somebody just needed their it's a very infamous thing in BMM, but ad design projects are always outsourced to other designers. So I started taking up ad design projects of my peers, and you had to build a whole brand and its universe about just a hypothetical brand and its universe, and I had immense fun. I could do it for the whole class. So doing that, then applying design in theater. So I realized the flyers or visuals of theater carry a lot of weightage, and theater has not really taken that seriously yet. But in UK, the poster of the theater is equally important as theater itself, because it's a publicity point. It attracts people. It's setting up your brand language. It's a form of art that theater carries as a sister art. So not in India so much. In India, in fact, I'm a little upset to see that even before we explore the aesthetics of posters, people have already started using AI for their posters. And there was a time when I went to Prithvi Theatre and I saw the pinboard and all the posters were looking the same. So that's uh, that's one format. When again, a lesson my dad gave to me when it came to design. When I was designing and he saw uh, my artworks, I was just casually showing. I'm not a fan of showing my work to people in design. But I was just casually showing, and my dad said, "Don't limit yourself to graphics. When it comes to design, everything in the world is design." Uh, so sometimes he gives these little fortune cookies, and they turn out to be the most important bits of uh, statements for me for years to come. And I asked him, what does he mean? So he's like, design is also interior design, design is also space design. So tomorrow, if somebody sees your graphic work and asks you to redesign that space, go ahead and do it. I said, why would I do it? I want to specialize in something. So he's like, no, that doesn't stop you from giving a perspective of what space is, right? That's still design. So I started doing that. Then I started, every time I go watch a play, I always see the lights and sets first and the poster first. And maybe that's what like that's what my inclination in theater primarily is. I want to apply Mr. Satyu's teaching there, see the mobility, see how much not how beautiful but how functional can we make the set, because essentially design is not about aesthetics but about functionality in an aesthetic way. So um I at this point of time I'm trying to combine both my love for theater and design and see where we go. Even today, when I'm seeing a show, I'm always redesigning the set in my head before I'm redesigning the story. When I'm walking on the street, I'm always redesigning the street. When I'm entering a house, I'm always rearranging stuff. I want to see if one piece of art could have been exchanged and the energy of the room could have been different. So it's a beautiful thing to have. I don't overthink my design. I don't overthink where I stand in the industry with regards to design. It's a very blissful place. The economies are good. I'm always touch wood. I'm never short of work. It pays decently. It pays basis your skill, and yeah, you can, because I'm free of the competitive tension. I enjoy it, and I always tell myself in the theater side of things or acting side of things to take lessons from my design side of things on how I'm approaching that.
Yeah, because I remember seeing your poster that you made recently for a play that I saw, Joe Duba
Oh yeah.
Sopar, and I saw the play, and I actually saw your poster later on, and I really think you captured the essence of that play because it was a musical. It was about these mystics that lived in a particular time, and
I mean,
your visual. Yeah, Amir Khusro, and and it was, you just had a visual of one person in like a dark background. I will link, add
yeah.
the link to the show notes. Just dancing in a dark background without the face being seen, and I think that was
Correct.
That was one of the finer posters I've seen, because as a theater audience, I think when I'm looking for plays, the first thing I do is I go and book my show, or I go to Prithvi Theatre's website or any of the theater companies' websites, and I'm browsing through the description and the poster. Very
Okay.
often, it's the visual of the poster that brings me in, and then it's obviously the actors and the story that is there. But if the visual is appealing, especially on ticketing sites, I feel like I'm immediately captured. I there must be something that is bringing me in, and in a lot of ways I feel like it adds to my experience as a viewer, because I normally watch plays in Hindi, Urdu, or English, so
Yeah.
I feel like you're so right. I'm so intrigued by how you as a professional, because I think a poster is so complex as an art form, right, Ranjana? Because you, in one visual, you have to take this entire play, all the rehearsals, all the actors thinking, all the directors thinking, all the writer, and you have to communicate it in one single visual. I think that's
Yes.
so hard to do because there's so much pressure, because you're basically the voice of all these artists and technicians
Correct.
in that one visual, right? So yeah, that's very exciting to see how you are intermingling, both these worlds.
I'll just credit that the picture that you're talking about for the poster, Jodu Basopar, was also it was a photo that I selected from beautifully captured photos by Mayank Soni. So I highly give him more credit and probably typography and layout to myself because he had captured it really well. And so sometimes design is that it's just curating the right, like it might not completely be a work of scratch for work done from scratch by you. It might be a composition of various pieces of work by other artists. So here
Mm.
I would want to credit him because he captured that picture really well. For me, it was just a matter of picking it up and then working on it. Uh, but
And
yeah, that is. I'm sorry I interrupted you there.
no, I think yeah, like that's so important to also understand the collaborative nature of design and art in that sense. Sometimes you're learning from other people and bringing in the work of other artists and technicians that add to your sort of primary skill as well, right? So, like one thing I wanted to ask you, Ranjana, is like after university, you've taken up several design related roles. You were head of design at a company called Social Pill for about 3 to 4 years. You worked as a visual consultant at Leher more recently for maybe a year or two. And
Um,
before that, as you said, there was the Pink Elephant. So, if you could tell me about some campaigns that you worked on, and not just talk about the campaign, but tell me about one element of design that you felt you worked on for that campaign. For instance, if you could tell me about like typography for one of the restaurant campaigns you worked for, or if you could tell me about how you used colors for one of the other brands that you worked on. So, for someone that is curious about design, this would be an interesting entry point into understanding how a designer thinks.
I could tell you about so not campaigns per se, but just now, like yesterday, I there's a restaurant because a lot of my work revolved around hospitality sector. Just yesterday, I worked on um, a, a food festival by the Caravan Menu, and it is called the North Indian Darbar. And they wanted to cover the cuisines of Punjab, Kashmir, and Delhi. So I was very happy. I will show you the look. Of course, you would want to probably see the mood board of that. And uh, now that's where you use AI and not use AI. It's a very interesting concept. So, Caravan is doing this festival. They want to cover the cuisine. The first thing we possibly do, at least my process is that I use history. So I'm going to go find out what is common between Punjab, Kashmir, and Delhi. What is it that is it the Sindh belt? Is it the were there rulers? Is it the fact that they had king rule? Um, I mean, I just want to find out what. So we hadn't even considered the name. We were just thinking of Punjab, Kashmir, and Delhi being the states to cover in terms of cuisine. So we instantly thought of Darbar because um, these three places have a rich legacy of rulers. Also a rich legacy of clothing, but clothing clashes with food. We are not doing that. So we called it the North Indian Darbar. And then the first thing you do is you decide colors, you decide the mood, you decide the illustrations. Everything has 1,000 sub chapters. When you go with colors, you go with warm, cool, earthy, muted, neutral. What is it going, what will give you the feel of North India and Darbar put together? Let's not even complicate that idea. As simple as that. When you go with illustrations, the most important thing and the most doable thing now with AI, would you want it to be cartoonish? Would you want it to be royal? If you want it to be royal, should the illustrations have black outlines? Should they not have? Should they be seamless? So that is one set of things. When you will go and do the photography, which is going to be integrated in our designs, it's best to give your photographer or any other co-artist a mood board as well. Uh, so I gave my photographer a mood board of, um, you know, take a lot of dark lighting, take a lot of royal dishes, make sure that there is coherence. For me, coherence is the most important design element across a campaign. And in one poster, whether it's theater or a campaign, alignment and harmony is the most important thing. No color should clash. There should be more than two typographies. These are my rules, and everyone can have their own rules. Uh, and these are very basic rules. I am sure the students who have passed out from design schools might have a more structured way of thinking, but I haven't. So I have made my own rules. Um, yeah, so that's how I created a darbar silhouette, just the arch of it. You don't want to put the whole universe of a darbar in one poster. You just want to give a suggestion. So we must always probably remember that food is the hero, and the name is the hero, and the restaurant is the hero, and the background is your theme. Theme is always the background. Theme is there to give fill lighting, while your main brand is your key lighting. Sometimes you can reverse that. Like brand integrations nowadays has that reverse. They will make sketches and they will make web series, and then they will integrate their brand as a fill rather than a key. So that's where you play. Then we will we will design the whole grid. The grid will have, like, that's how I have designed that. The grid will have the central structure, which will have again the feeling of the theme, and the two sides will probably have the main information about the kind of food served, the kind of offers running. So that's how I have planned the campaign, which I'm going to be working on over the week. And it's interesting. The best part about it is that I have been giving complete creative freedom by my clients, and I think that's the best power a client can give to its designer is trust. When I was doing a Joe Duba poster or any other theater poster, the clients or the artists give me complete freedom, and that's my blessing. That's what we want.
Yeah, because I remember you sharing this post where you spoke about, I think on LinkedIn there was someone else's post you shared about the different kinds of design professionals. Like within this larger category of design, Ranjana, like there are communication designers, there are UX designers, there are UI designers. So for someone that knows nothing about design, like what are the specific areas that you can specialize in as a designer, like if you wanted to go more in depth, or do you recommend being more of a generalist? Like I'm just curious, like is there, because I had a designer friend who told me that it's unfair to always expect a UI designer to also do UX work, or it's unfair to expect someone that's purely working on the strategy part to also do the other things. So, what are some of the other, you know, like if you could tell me four or five career options from this design field, like what would those be?
Currently, UI UX is on the rise, yes. Within graphic design itself, a designer who does composite work. For example, I am a composite designer. I get different pieces of art together and put it in one frame and see if it works. It's like craft. An illustrator is a different person who's good with drawing. And again, an illustrator might be good with pen and paper, but not so much with a tablet. But that is one art form which is again very. I think you can go absolutely wild because you have the power to create an asset. I work with those assets. I will need your illustration to then make my whole picture, right? So that is where an asset is being created. That's an illustrator's job. I always, like you just gave an example, I always get very annoyed when somebody is like, "Can you illustrate?" I can't. I'm not an illustrator. So illustrator is different, graphic designer is different, UI UX designer works with different software, so that's a different person. Um, Lately, there is a communication design as a job role. I'm not very sure what that means. Communication design may not have much to do with design, but more to do with strategy on how to communicate the brand's idea to the rest to its consumers. So that's what it is. I'm not sure. I've not explored that part of uh, the field yet. I will tell you what is not touched by AI yet. That would be interior design itself. Space design. In space design, there are 1,000 sub designers that might be needed. There's acoustic designer who might be a totally different person, which is more engineering based. Um, there might be a spatial designer which will do more with your seatings and logistics. An architect, for example, has so many uh, you know people with different expertise. So that's a segment which is largely untouched by AI. But it doesn't matter. Like even right now, when artificial intelligence has come in, it cannot work without our inputs. So when it comes to graphic design, there are illustrators, there are motion graphic designers. For instance, in my team itself, I make frames, but I have a colleague who will be animating them. So I make slides by slide and then I explain the whole flow of the slide, and that person then goes on to give it life. There is an illustrator, like I said. Um, there's a strategy designer. Sometimes I do strategies for my client. That's because as a designer, I have some idea on how strategy and design can marry. So to say, I don't think we are in a world where there are different kinds of role which are fixed anymore. If you know, for example, if you know graphic design and you are an MBA graduate, so maybe you're good at managing people or managing business side of things, you can then become um, sort of a strategy and communications for visual designer. I don't know, I just made that up. Maybe because you have this skill and that skill, and you can combine and you can put that in your resume, and then you can go on to explain it in your interview. There's no problem with that. I also don't consider myself as a graphic designer, but a visual consultant, because I not only understand design that most hospitality brands want or brands want in general, but I can also manage the people who design. Because in Time Out Mumbai, or Social Pill, as they call it now, which was initially Time Out Mumbai, I was heading the design team. So I was not designing as much as I was managing my team. And managing designers is different from managing accountants or managing client servicing people or managing artists. It's they Designers are artists, so they are very moody, they are very vulnerable. So now you might be a design manager. So I highly disagree when it comes to structured roles. But you're right, you are also trying to educate your audience. We have the same set of people: UI, UX, architects, illustrators, motion graphics, animators, visual effects, VFX. VFX is different from animators because they deal with a different software. So design can also be segregated basis the software you use. But that's a very technical thing. And when it comes to your sensibilities of design, there are endless possibilities. You can be everything you know in one room.
Um, yeah, like you do speak like someone that has really thought about design for a very long time, Ranjan. And I'm really fascinated because you said that you didn't have any formal sort of education or like a design degree. Do you feel like if you did like a course or a degree on a particular element of design, it would have somehow changed your aesthetic or strategic sort of understanding of the field? Or do you feel like the path that you took was the best path for you in that sense?
Maybe I would have been much more refined. Maybe I knew more principles and more theories. But to be honest, I am not that kind of a learner. I don't depend on any education system to teach me what to do. In fact, after my BMM advertising degree, the first thing I did out of a college was outside of college was do a 2 to 3 month internship at Hindustan Times, which was a journalism based work. And within those 3 months, I understood the mechanisms of the newsroom. So I highly am a learner by experience. I don't think I can do with sitting in the classrooms and doing projects. It's not my cup of tea. But there are different people and all kinds of people. Somebody might really need notes to understand what they're doing and refer to that. And all due respect to that. I just feel like if I had a formal education in acting or formal education in design, it would just make me think more, which can be both a good thing and bad thing. If I think more and do less, it's a bad thing. If I think more, I might come up with something special. So it's about the balance. I can still think more. I can still read up books. We are in a time where if we do not have the time and money for an education, we can still survive. We can still dedicate our time to, I largely feel like everything is now internet, right? What I don't have to feel for it. It's a fact. It's just if you want to really learn about something that fascinates you, just go on the internet, go in the library, pick up books, talk to people who have done that, and you're good. I think that's better. And I think it's better to not do a course because humans learn better with curiosity. So let a curiosity arise, in my opinion, and then chase it till you have taken enough knowledge about it rather than just going through a curriculum who someone else has structured for you. For basic education, it's fine, but for specialized education, uh, of course, for something like aeronautical engineering and medicine, I wouldn't recommend that. But
Yeah.
a lot of creative arts, I think, thrives on curiosity and passion. So much better to follow your gut than a curriculum.
Yeah. And like for you as a design professional, Ranjana, like recently, do you remember not some maybe not something that you have worked on, but you saw as a consumer, like a brand campaign that you thought did something special, because it hit all these design elements really well. And it touched something in you as a human being, not just as a consumer. Like what comes to your mind in that sense?
This is
Like,
difficult because, like I said, I'm not in the competitive mode when it comes to design. I
mm,
don't care much about the world. What's
interesting. Right.
happening, not happening. To me, it's just
Yeah.
aesthetic. But a really fun brand. I will say brands in different levels.
Yeah.
So for me, Jaja is a brand. It promotes spirits, but you can't promote spirit as alcohol, right? So it sells around the brand, not the brand itself, which is a rule for any alcohol-based brand. And I had a lot of fun scrolling the Instagram page of Jaja because it was funny, it was witty, it was clever. So a lot of my content and quirk based in inspiration comes from Jaja. You can check that page out. It's fun. I don't know if it's still that way, but yeah. As a human, I think advertising campaigns do better. But when it came to design, I'm missing out the name of the brand, but I remember seeing. I'll tell you actually a much simpler example. A toothpick is to me a great design because I'll tell you why. Because the lower part of the toothpick has if you've seen it's crooked, okay,
Yeah.
and I'm very conscious of dirt because I'm staying in a country which catches dust because of the nature of soil. So when I actually looked up on why a toothpick has a certain, design towards the end, it said that you break it and then you put the part which goes into your mouth on it so that it doesn't catch dust. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I didn't know
Yeah.
it, but that's good design. And it's not anything to do with graphics.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think when you think through, like I said, functionality is great, aesthetics are good. Works for me.
So
That's
should
that's
we?
I'm just gonna fix the lighting for you a little bit.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Because I take your time, Ranjana, and like I'm just thinking that this element of functionality and aesthetics, combining that, somehow comes through as your philosophy of, what is good design in a small way, and just to respect time, Ranjana, I wanted to go back to your world of theater. Sorry.
I'm so sorry. It's
Take,
cloudy all of a sudden, so I don't want your quality to be
it's
affected.
okay. It's okay. It's probably the mood of the conversation that's changing. It's okay. It's okay. So, but I wanted to go back. So, I was doing some, like you had sent me your bio before, and I was looking at the roles that you played, right? In Shatranj Ke More, you played Geeta, who was a disciplined and controlled daughter of a late
Oh, haven't
revolution.
thought of that. Oh God.
You know, in Drishtidan, you played like a 17-year-old bubbly girl. In Bilkis Begum Ka Bada, you played the youngest daughter of Bilkis Begum, and it's based on a play by a, uh,
Look
a
at that.
story which I also wanted to briefly, talk to you about how you take a story from another country and culture and make it sort of local in our context. Because Bilkis Begum Ka Wada was like a Hindustani adaptation of that sort of story in that sense. And then in Ekor Dronacharya, which you did with your father, you were, exploring this idea of education in the country, but your character also had like a very specific role, which I think your character's name was Anuradha, which
Yes.
had some resemblance to Draupadi in that. So, like you've played these different roles, and I think you've done some of these plays multiple times. Like you said that you've acted in over 200 plus live performances, right, Ranjana? So, like, um, do you think the preparation process for each of these roles is like very different emotionally and physically? Like, if you could tell me about the example of maybe one or two of these performances and how your preparation sort of changed based on the demands of the character and that script. And this is about your life as an actor and a
Yeah.
theater professional over here.
Uh, I give again. So I think this is a little bit of an imposter syndrome where I give all the credit of everything I do first to someone else. So, a lot of credit always goes to the director and the writer. When I talk about Shatranj Ke More, for example, it's a play written by Pulo Deshpande, who in his time has been considered one of the best writers of our country. Shatranj Ki More actually is a play where even if I deliver the dialogues flat, it still reaches the audience just because of the nature of the writing being so brilliant. Mr. Ramesh Talwar, our director, has in fact worked on the nitty gritties of every move. So he's a there are directors who are looking at the larger frame, and then there are directors who are looking at each actor. And Mr. Talwar is in fact one of them. I highly owe this to him because it is from him that I learned a lot of understanding about blocking, um, how to walk on the stage. When I walk straight, I'm talking to the audience. When I'm walking diagonally, I'm talking to myself. That's a rule that he introduced me to. Uh, Geeta that I play in Shatranj is a very soft-spoken girl, but how much of your soft-spokenness should be audible enough for the KRO to hear? How much, like, there is a monologue in that play where he would direct me on every line on what is the decibel of this monologue, the tonality, on how should you drop, what should your body language be when you've given up. Maybe you slouch your shoulders. And while he was, a critic might say that that seems very spoon fed, but for someone who is a constant student of theater arts, his spoon feeding gave me so much insight about the fact कि अच्छा ऐसे होता है. That's why, like, it gave me the logic that I'm slouching my shoulder because I've resigned and now I'm crying and I have resigned. So my shoulder drops. So after that rehearsal, I started noticing every body movement and the emotion corresponding to it. So even though he directed exactly the way he directs, it left me with a lifetime of education on how I should, um, like, it's such a beautiful example. He gave me what to do, but I am still left with a whole knowledge of how will I do it further now, right? So, and at the same time, Mr. M.S. Sathya, when he directs, he just leaves you free. So then you learn through exploration, asking yourself the questions. So I've been so lucky that I got both kind of directors to give me their style of direction, so I could bloom in a way which is, like my father says, is specific to me only. Similarly, when I played Bilkis Begum Ka Bada, when I played Adela or Adela uh, in this adaptation, your question about its relevance is much to do with what the director or the producer has picked up. But House of Bernarda Alba was about restrictions placed on women by women in a patriarchal society. A family of 7 women are following patriarchal rules for no reason, and how it impacts their life. I don't think if it's a Spanish story from where it comes or it's Indian, its relevance stays exactly the same. In fact, before we adapted House of Bernarda Alba, I will, after this podcast, give you the name of the film by Mr. Govind Nehlani, who already adapted this as a film. Uh, with really good cast, Pallavi Joshi and whatnot. I mean, it was a beautiful cast. I actually referred to that film before we did. So because the work of art was already done before us, there was a reference. And then we could apply whatever was our understanding. Ek aur Dronacharya is also a beautifully penned play by Dr. Shankar Shesh, which draws parallel between mythology and modern day problems. So education system is in the center of the play subject, but it beautifully draws parallel between that and Mahabharata. On various situations in Mahabharata where Eklavya wants to learn something from Dronacharya. He wants to learn archery from Dronacharya. But just because he doesn't belong to the right caste, he's not granted that education. And how you can possibly have similar relevance or similar inferences or the relevance of that story in today's time is well written. And I believe if something is well written, that's half the job done. And one of my seniors at IPTA mentioned that an actor's job is at 3 levels. One is to get the writer's message to the audience. That's the basic level. Whatever writer wanted you to get, just get it. Second is to get the director's message to the audience. That is built upon the writer's message that the director will get you through. And then is the third level, where as an actor, you add on to that and further help with, the delivery of the writer's message to the audience in a more refined and polished way. So his understanding was that's where a good actor comes in. So He was probably training another actor for Shatranj Ke Maurya, and he's like, see, Pula Deshpande has done his job. Mr. Ramesh Talwar has done his job. And now it's my job to add on to it. Otherwise, why you? Why not anyone else? So what are you adding to it that will, further help Pula Deshpande's message reach the audience? So if you have a great writer, which I did in all these plays, and if you have a great director, which I'm fortunate to get through IPTA, and I hope to get through many other uh, groups or through IPTA itself, half my job is done. And then comes my own experiences, which I had mentioned from my library of experience, from my observation. What can I pick up and then put to you? And then I apply my dad's rule that nothing can be wrong or right. And then I apply my own critique and try to keep refining. That's my process. And I may not be perfect, but I will always be a work in progress in that.
Yeah. I love how honest and humble you are about your craft, Ranjana. You're so open to learn, but I do feel like not only as a professional, you've grown up in this world. You've already, at a very young age, spent more than 15 to 20 years in this world of theater. So I feel like you are someone that is very competent in this space, not only for how many performances you've done, but for how you've observed this world so closely for so long. And I do think, you're one of the finest, theater professionals. And I hope you do continue to, create work. And I feel like sometimes it's good to appreciate all the work that you've, done. I know you have a very long way to go, and you're just starting off, but I think whatever you've done until now is commendable and definitely worth that praise in that sense. So
Thank
to
you. That's so
close,
kind.
you're welcome. And I will be linking IPTA's website, which stands for Indian People's Theatre Association. Am I right, Ranjana?
Correct. That's right.
And their plays, I know they have chapters in Bombay, but they do have chapters all around India.
I was
And
just going to tell you about it because you, in the beginning of the podcast, you had mentioned that theater outside of Mumbai is not so privileged. But IPTA, in fact, is a movement, not just a theater group. So uh, it has its wings all over India, even in Bihar, in Jharkhand, in Bilaspur, which is Chhattisgarh, Kerala, so Madhya Pradesh. I mean, it's really spread out, and all the people affiliated with IPTA in different parts of the country are doing a phenomenal job at their level with their resources, with whatever they have. Some are just, if they don't have the money, they are keeping the form of street play alive. In fact, the work is very underrated. What they're doing is beautiful at this point. It's just not very uh, very hyped up, but it's definitely worth noting. Sorry.
and and like if someone does want to reach you to learn about your work in theater and design, what's the best way to learn more about your work on the internet, Ranjana? So would you just say Instagram or the IPTA website is like the best source, or any other way to?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of guidance for design or theater, definitely I'm all game for that. I may not be the best person for, like I said, I don't consider myself anywhere in the in the universe of stage. Even in terms of making progress, it might be just a 5% right now. But when it comes to I still have a lot of friends who are always sending me numbers. My nephew, my niece wants to join theater. She wants to be an actor. This is usually what the this is usually what the query is. I want to be an actor and I want to do theater because theater is very cool. It's like, no, theater is not very cool. It's really hot in there. But I do guide them because my first job, I feel, is to show them the real picture about the economies and how tough it can get, especially if you are coming from another city, state, and planning to settle here all by yourself, then mentally be very, very ready about the challenges. Mumbai is not an easy city to live in. And acting is not at all currently a very easy career to pursue. In fact, one thing, if you might have not asked me, but I will still add on because it's a very important perspective in terms of this subject, is that an actor has no trust by their peers until unless they've made it. And when it comes to theater, a lot of parents who do not, I'm fortunate because I have parents who support me. But a lot of people are children of chartered accountants and UPSC aspirants and people who done really well in their line of work, which had a set structure of work. Their parents are not very supportive of their children because, of course, they have not seen how this career is. And to be very brutal and crass about what this career is, you have to go out and find work. You have to work on your craft, and you need to constantly be slogging from auditions to auditions, and you might still not be selected on the basis of your skill, and you might be selected. Someone else might be taken for that role because they look the part, and it's all fair, honestly, because a brand is putting in money. They will take who they want. So it comes with so much risk. You may have work today and nothing at all tomorrow. And you might have to juggle between two different careers to make a living and pay the rent. And still, even if you have managed to become something in this world, in this career of acting, you might be completely forgotten the next month. So you're only as good as your last work. It's a very unforgiving line. And my only piece of advice, even though I'm not in a position to give it yet, but I have seen in my family and I've seen in the people around me. So maybe from that perspective, my only advice to anybody who wants to pursue acting is please don't do it for the fame of it and only for the love of it. Maybe also कैफी आजमी की काफी खूबसूरत कहावत है कि उन्होंने अपनी बेटी से शायद ये कहा था कि जो बीज आप डाल रहे हैं, हो सकता है उस पेड़ के नीचे आपको बैठने का मौका ना मिले इस जन्म में। मतलब if you are sowing something, if you're sowing a seed for a tree, you might not be able to sit under the shadow of it in this life. And if you approach it with that attitude, you might be better off because let's just forget about the outcome and just remember that you chose a line completely at your own risk. You might not have anybody to back you for this.
Yeah, that's so beautifully put and such a nice quote by Kathy Asmi, right? And I think that's the larger purpose of art you can see much later on. Maybe not in this lifetime. I'm really going to remember that. I'm so sorry about time, Ranjana. I'm going to conclude this. So to end this conversation, if you could give me one book and film recommendation that you really enjoyed recently, not the best, but something you've enjoyed recently, and all the links to what we discussed in the conversation will be in the show notes. This episode will be available on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, JioSaavn, and Apple Podcasts. So it will be available on video and audio. And I will be linking IPTA's website. So please do follow this conversation up with seeing a play by Ranjana and the theatre group that she's part of as well. So one recommendation, and we come to the end of this conversation.
For book, I would actually recommend you, but this doesn't have to be related to arts and design, right? Okay, great. Because
Could be
I
anything. Yeah.
I just happened to read Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and I absolutely loved it because the book was very fast paced and he goes through a very difficult subject with comedy as the tone. And I feel it's very difficult because when you have to, like, for example, there's a play that IPTA does called Girija Ke Sapne, again by MS Satyu, where he touches upon the topic of farmer suicide because of the introduction of a Monsanto seed through comedy. And I think it's tough for anybody to touch upon something so difficult with that tonality. But it makes the viewer really, I think I really believe in comedy as a genre because it has so much power. So that book definitely, I mean, it can never go wrong with any kind of reader. And Not Without My Daughter was a book that I read when I was in college. Uh, I still have it in my memory imprinted because it really makes you sit on the edge of the seat while I think the storytelling is brilliant. So both these books would be my recommendation. Another book on acting goes by the same name, is by S. Oliver, which is a great book for actors. So I think this book was gifted to my father by a great director called, his name is Kundan Shah. Um, I think it's a gem in the form of book for actors. When it comes to movies, I have been consuming a lesser amount of it because I have been into books lately. But I saw a documentary on Ravish, and I would highly recommend that. It's on movie. It's a beautiful documentation of his journey from the newsroom to his home. So his personal life is juggling with professional life, and I think I will link you that documentary.
This is the film by Vinay Shukla, right?
Yes, yes.
Right.
So, because that is the last piece of audiovisual I've consumed. Like I said, I've been reading books lately, and I've been trying to also understand I can write a book. So this is a different journey altogether. Uh, it sticks with me because Ravish is again doing something what actors do, is stand somewhere. And this is a very personal political opinion, so I'll put that disclaimer here. Stand through really tough times. Like theater goes through economic downfalls, same as in the documentary NDTV was going through. And he still stands there and tries to do justice to his work without any backing. Exactly what I told you in the last bit of this set. I think it's very tough to stand by truth and stand by something you believe in, where a world is constantly telling you to go with where the larger population is moving. And if you have to go against the tide, it might need a lot of books and documentaries to keep you up with that encouragement. So yeah, I might not be the best person right now for audio.
No, but these are great. And on that note, sorry, on that, were you going to say something, Ranjana?
No, I was just completing that. I'm done.
So, I mean, those are great recommendations. I will be including that in the show notes. And on that note, we come to an end of this episode of Learning Stories. Thank you, Ranjana. This was really, really fun. Even though we've known each other on and off for the last, 10 years or so, but I've learned a little more about you through this conversation. And that's the hope of this podcast. So stay tuned for more such stories. And until next time, this is Abhishek Shetty signing off on this episode of Learning Stories. Thank you,
Thank
Ranjana.
you. Thank you so much. Bye.